This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. I wanted to do a video on this story that's out there about a mouse study which has found that small extracellular vesicles from young blood extend lifespan, because this is something I've been warning about for a long period of time, and people don't realize that they've been getting programmed with this theme of blood transfusions of young children into adults and how this will help fight disease in the future. This is normalizing occult practices that are usually done in darkness, in secret, and bringing it out into the public eye and normalizing this. And then, of course, using terminology like science, like modern medicine, to normalize what is really satanic, demonic rituals that are performed with young children in the blood of young children. So while you might see this story, you might say, wait a minute, this is just talking about a mouse study that's talking about young blood extending lifespans. Maybe in the future that could help out adult human beings live longer. Well, they've been programming you with this for a long period of time. You probably just haven't noticed.
I'm back in the pink, full of pith and vinegar. I tried every tincture and poultice and tonic and medicine there is, and all I really needed was the blood of a young boy.
What would that we kind of need to build?
Guys, Bryce, guys. He's my transfusion associate. Well, the science is actually pretty fascinating. Regular transfusions of the blood of a younger, physically fit donor can significantly retard the aging process.
That looks great, thank you. What you want in a pancake is to have the consistency of young human flesh.
It's spongy, it has life to it.
You're with a guy with brightly colored undergarments, and you got soft human flesh in front of you.
And the reason they've been programming you with this is because eventually they're going to normalize it. The longer you're programmed, the more desensitized you become to all of this stuff. Now, I'm going to read to you something from Aleister Crowley's book that I've covered over the years. And I can't show you the actual writing on screen because it'll pick up with the actual writing and flag it, because that's what the algorithm does now. It reads through all the words that are mentioned. But let me read to you from his book so you can see where this is going with the normalization of blood rituals, specifically the blood of a young child. And of course, how that ties into these stories about experiments being done, some of the clips that you just saw with the blood of a young child actually helping out humans in today's world. It could stop Parkinson's, it could stop Alzheimer's, and then eventually how they will use Planned Parenthood. And people will say, well, you know, these are already aborted children, they're not here. Might as well put it to use and do these things if it's going to help us out. And that also ties into this narcissistic reality that we're living in, where people aren't suspicious of these things. They just go along with it because if it benefits me, they won't question it. So Aleister Crowley in his teachings says, the animal should therefore be killed within the circle or the triangle, as is the case may be, so that its energy cannot escape. That's pertaining to the ritual circle, that big magic circle that I always talk about, that you always see these celebrities use in their music videos, etc. An animal should be selected whose nature accords with that of the ceremony. Thus, by sacrificing a female lamb, one would not obtain any appreciate quantity of the fierce energy useful to a magician who is invoking Mars. In such a case, a ram would be more suitable. And this ram should be virgin. The whole potential of its original total energy should not have been diminished in any way. For the highest spiritual working, one must accordingly choose that victim which contains the greatest and purest force. A male child of perfect innocence and high intelligence is the most satisfactory and suitable victim. It goes on to say, but the bloody sacrifice, though more dangerous, is more effective, and for nearly all purposes, human sacrifice is best. So human sacrifice, of course, of a young male child. And as you saw in some of those clips, the mentioning of a young male's blood. Okay? So this story correlates with that because there's been stories that I've covered over the years. There's a pattern here. Okay? You might have seen some of the stories that I've covered, or you may have seen it elsewhere, of a lot of these guys in Silicon Valley, a lot of these big tech guys who are funding millions of dollars into themselves, into doing blood transfusions and things like this to fight aging. There's a lot of headlines out there about why are billionaires trying to fight aging and all this stuff. They are normalizing occult practice. So in this article, read between the lines. New research presents a significant discovery. Small extracellular vesicles from the blood of young mice possess the capacity to dramatically extend lifespan, rejuvenate whole body physiology, and reverse age-related degenerative changes in aged mice. The work is published in Nature Aging, a collaborative research team out of Nanjing University. Blood exchange therapy in reverse aging has long been a subject of debate, marked by a lack of definitive and compelling evidence. Now, what you're seeing right now is them normalizing this by mentioning these stories to you, okay? They'll never mention words like witchcraft and black magic because they know that that would make people step back and say, wait a minute, what? But if you name something science, right? If you name something and say pharmaceutical, even though these words all tie back into magic, pharmaca, magic, right? What we're seeing in front of us is name changes on stuff that has been long practiced throughout history, going back to ancient Babylonian texts. And you're seeing it now with a dumbed down society, calling it things like science and medicine. So the blood exchange therapy and reverse aging has long been the subject of debate, they say to you, but it isn't a long subject of debate. It's been a long subject of conditioning. And the more morals our society loses, as we see every day, the moral compass continues to get flushed down the proverbial crapper on a day in, day out basis. The more they start talking about this stuff, the more they build people up on the backside of all of this as more narcissistic without them realizing how egotistical and narcissistic they're becoming with social media, etc. Then when they start saying, wait, this could be available to humans. Wait, you don't want to die. Wait, you have a wrinkle. Then we start seeing the normalization of transhumanism and, of course, the normalization of occult practice. And that's really how Satan builds his army, that army mentioned in Revelation. And it gets to a point where these people become unpenetratable. We can't get to them anymore. We can't reach them anymore. And then, of course, they become no longer human. But that's what these stories are doing. That's what they're normalizing, right? They're normalizing this stuff and telling you this stuff right to your face. But when people see stuff like this, they don't realize that's what it is. They say to themselves, well, I've used anti-aging wrinkle cream. What's wrong with that? And they don't realize that they've been set up. You think 100 years ago, women were walking around dyeing their hair when they had gray hair? No, they weren't. Were men looking in the mirror going, oh man, my beard's gray. I better get to the local pharmacy and get myself some dye so I can look like Billy Mays or Billy Hayes, whatever the guy is who used to peddle products on TV with that jet black beard. Nobody was thinking like that. Nobody was trying to fight aging. This is a new modern concept. While people may not have looked forward to or wanted to die 100 years ago, people weren't trying to defy normal concepts like getting old. It's become an obsession in our current world because they've implanted seeds like this in everything. Everything we hear and from all around us is always about anti-aging, looking younger, feeling younger, right? 50's the new 30, 60's the new 20. I mean, all these insane sayings that they keep popping out there and putting into people's heads. They don't realize that they're getting worked, and they're getting worked into eventually partaking in these rituals that they won't even realize are rituals. They already are in a lot of senses because we know that they're putting fetal cells in a lot of these products, these anti-aging products anyway, like they're putting a lot of fetal cells in a lot of our food. But first you start with getting people to partake in these rituals without realizing it. And then the next step of that is you get human beings to start altering what they are, altering their genetic code so that they can live longer, so that they can defy aging, and they can no longer have to fear death because they won't be able to find death. Like the Bible tells us, there will be those who seek death and cannot find death. That's what we're headed towards. And scientific studies like this, it just goes back to what I read out of Aleister Crowley's book and how important the blood of young children are in their rituals. That's why they target young children in these rituals. And this goes back to Baal worship in the Old Testament. This goes back to the beginning of the Bible, talking about sacrificing their children to Baal. This still occurs to this day. But this is done in secret, in darkness. Most people wouldn't believe it's actually going on. But now we're in a transitional phase where they're actually coming out and trying to normalize this stuff to everybody out there. And they call people like us conspiracy nuts. And we're literally on the cusp of them normalizing these rituals. Look what has happened with Planned Parenthood. Look how normal that has become. It's a debate. It's no longer in people's minds a life of a child. It's literally about me, me, me. You know, people weren't talking like this 100 years ago about Planned Parenthood being some type of an option, some type of human rights deal, women's rights deal. They don't realize how manipulated they're getting on a day in, day out basis. So for me to sit here and talk about this, for anyone out there to roll their eyes and say that they're not going to normalize this stuff, they're not going to normalize like as if they're not normalizing vampire facials with Kim Kardashian and all these other celebrities that are putting blood on their own faces and telling you it helps fight aging. This stuff is getting normal. And people are partaking in it, and they're going to continue to as long as they're told that it's going to benefit me, me, me. And that's the other thing that's working with it. The more we see people boost it up, the more people talk about their self-worth and self. Then when they start pushing this stuff on people, they won't think about the repercussions. They won't think about God. They'll think about themselves, and they'll be duped into partaking in rituals when they don't even realize it, when literally, if they just had their eyes open, they could see what was happening right in front of them. They are normalizing this stuff, and they've been showing us this for a long period of time. With The Simpsons, with a lot of these shows, with these blood transfusions of the youth, and there's more out there. That was just a few clips. I used to have compilations with hundreds of clips from all of these types of topics. Cannibalism, young blood, normalization of vampires, which goes back to that libel thing they won't let you talk about. All of it, the core of it goes back to the blood of the youth. And that's why stories like this circulate out there over and over and over again. Young blood transfusion might stop leukemia. Young blood transfusion might stop Parkinson's, might stop Alzheimer's. They keep tagging this stuff onto diseases that they're creating by poisoning everybody from the skies and in the food. So I had to cover this when I saw it, because this is a topic I've covered many times, and we're headed towards it. We're headed towards it. And look, you might think now, you might be new to this. You might say, this guy's nuts. This guy's out of his mind. This guy's like, it's a little much. Okay? Well, I obviously saw a pattern watching and seeing a lot of shows talking about this stuff over the years. But I'll tell you right now, when I was telling people about how they were normalizing an adult and kids 5-10 years ago, people were saying I was nuts. Even people who listen to my channel on a day-to-day basis, they were like, that's a stretch. Now those same people go, oh, wow. Yeah, look at this. Not only are they normalizing it, they're giving kids the rights to castrate themselves at 5. And then they all know, everybody knows now, you could see that in a few years, 5-year-olds in liberal cities are going to be dating 40-year-olds, and everyone's going to be okay with it, because they're going to tell you that science and technology have gone so far ahead that children are so much smarter than children from previous generations. And now they can do that. And this all goes back to the occult. That's what they're normalizing. That's what this is all about. Every which way they can manipulate you and normalize the things that they do in darkness, because they don't want to do it in darkness anymore. And not only do they not want to do it in darkness, they want to lead souls away from God. And the way to do that is getting God's children to partake in these things, whether they realize it or not. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.